Hey, I just want to make it clear right off the bat that this is not going to be some kind of mindless complaining video. I know that the title can come off as negative, but any criticisms I have about this chapter, I'll explain. Most of the criticisms I have, I believe, stem from the fact that DBD had these mass layoffs last year, but they didn't extend the deadline for the smaller staff to get chapters out. This is why things have felt rushed and more buggy recently. If you've seen my videos in this style before, then you know that I really just make them so we can open up discussion in the comments to talk more about it. If you disagree with anything I say, or I'm wrong on something, you're more than welcome to tell me. Just keep it classy. Some of y'all got horrible attitude problems. But anyways, if you're new here, I hope you enjoyed the video.
Now let's start on a high note, and let's talk about the positives. First of all, the lore from this chapter is phenomenal. It ties in other chapters into it. It connects a lot of dots between other survivors and their connections to a mysterious group. It creates a direct rivalry between Tori Kane, the new survivor, and Hattie Kaur, the survivor from Roots of Dread. The Houndmaster's lore is incredibly interesting. I personally loved it. I've heard that a lot of people hated it, but anything having to do with the White Eyes theory, I love. But overall, I thought the lore was great, and I loved the fact that they tied in Tori's brother into also getting taken by the fog, as that could be a continuation chapter in the future. I think they learned from their mistake of retconning Michaela's lore and making Sable Michaela's best friend, even though Michaela had a different best friend who was a dude in her lore. I think they've learned from that, and I think they know now to set up opportunities for continuations of a story. So I think that's a great change. I think the music is fantastic, as you'll hear. I think it does a great job tying in the themes and the elements of this killer's aesthetic, of this whole chapter's aesthetic. It feels very French Quarter to me, and I think that's what they were going for. And in terms of character design itself, I absolutely love the design of both of these characters. I think the Houndmaster is so cool. I love the way she looks. I think her release day cosmetics, besides the incredibly scammy one that we'll get into, I've already made a full video on how scammy behavior shop practices are, especially after their shop rework, where they performatively changed prices to help the consumer, when in reality they contradicted them 5 seconds later. And now they're doubling down on contradicting themselves to a point where even the most average player can see how scammy these practices are.
And not to toot my own horn, but...
And this is speculation, but it just seems like they hope their community is dumb enough to not notice.
Toot toot. I was right. Speaking of tooting my own horn, while we're here, did you guys see that I called Project T getting canceled 2 months ahead of time? And did I bring back Scourge hooks? We haven't seen a new Scourge hook since 2022. I make a video about it. 5 days later, a Scourge hook is announced. I'm not trying to say that I did that, because obviously that's not the case. But it's also been a really hard month, and I could use the ego boost. So guys, I brought back Scourge hooks. I know, I'm a hero. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Back to the video. On the positive side of things, I absolutely love the characters' designs. I think they both have interesting stories. I think they feel unique to other characters in this game. And I think overall, aesthetically, it's a phenomenal original chapter. And without a doubt, at least the way I view it, this chapter has brought some of the best perks for both roles, as well as some of the worst, but Shoulder the Burden, with no question at all, if you have any kind of brain, is the best survivor perk in the entire game. Shoulder the Burden not only lets you stop someone else's tunnel, but it also allows people to use deli on second hook. I know this excludes solo queue, but if you have a teammate that's running deli and they take first chase, if they get hooked first and lose their deli value, before this patch, there was no way to ensure that you could still get value out of the perk. But if someone else is running Shoulder the Burden and they use it on you, you have another opportunity to get Deliverance value.
Oh, he has power. I'm fucked. Oh, he's kind of ass. Hold on. Crazy read. What the f... Fake it? Ooh. He gets me here because I'm ass. You're so thick! I couldn't vault past you because your thickness. If I was ever royalty of something, I would require them to call me your thickness. Oh, I went far right that time thinking he would go left because I've been hugging left. W Deli.
So because I was in chase when the first unhook was taken, I obviously could not get a safe unhook for deli value. In any other game before this patch, I would just have to say no value and go next. But Mr. Coconut here shoulders the burden, and as long as I get a safe unhook on my second state, then I get to use deli even though I missed the first opportunity.
Coconut takes no hits. He picks me I deli. Even though I've already been hooked. Let it count as a safe unhook. There it is. And then I deli. Guys, what the... You can deli on second state. That's insane. I will kill you. I'm going to find your address.
That in and of itself makes Shoulder the Burden incredibly strong. As we know, deli, in terms of swiffing, is one of the strongest perks in the entire game. People that think it isn't are folks who run it in solo queue, forcibly engage first chase, lose value, and then DC. Anybody with a brain knows how strong deli is, and now it's even stronger. However, Deliverance synergy aside, Shoulder the Burden is incredibly strong as it allows other people to take the burden, wow, crazy, of someone else's tunnel. Yes, if the killer wants to tunnel, they're still going to tunnel, and in a solo queue environment, you're not going to get that much value out of it, but if you're swiffing and you run this perk, it is unbelievably strong, as it allows for 3 more hook states on whoever's being tunneled. And to highlight my favorite perk on killer's side that was released, it's obviously Jagged Compass. I cannot believe that I was seeing people say Jagged Compass is bad. With all due respect, what the fuck? Now, I know I'm abnormally obsessed with Scourge hooks, as I made an entire video about it. And with the addition of Jagged Compass, every single Scourge is stronger. Not only that, but Gift of Pain and Floods of Rage can now get their effects on non-Scourge hooks, which is unbelievable. The only other perk we had that could add or move Scourges was Monstrous Shrine, and obviously that just added them in basement. Jagged Compass turns any hook to a Scourge hook on the unhook action. However, when you're using Scourges that activate on unhook, they activate on every single hook. If I'm running a Scourge build and I throw someone on a non-Scourge hook, when they get unhooked, I will get Gift of Pain and Floods of Rage value, even though they're not on a Scourge. That's passive intel and passive slowdown on every single hook on the map. It also shows the most progressed gen, which synergizes with Pain Res. It's just a disgustingly strong perk. I'll say it again. If you think this perk is bad,
You could not be more wrong. Now, I've said what I liked about the chapter, but it is time to talk about the negatives.
So like I said at the start of the video, I have no intention of just mindlessly tearing this chapter to shreds because there's some downsides. I don't think it's a bad chapter.
But I do think behavior is a bad company. And if you don't, you probably just don't know enough about them.
As I've said in the past, even if you're perfect at your job, behavior will still fire you, as has been shown by the Unknown release and the person who ran all of the incredible promo for that chapter immediately being fired after, as well as the Light in the Fog event, that person creating a very popular event and very successful event, being fired, and their event still being used. We also have more scammy shop practices. Again, these are all continuations from this video right here. They made these big promises to us about affordability and about making sure everything is fairly priced, and then they immediately contradicted their prices by adding some of the most expensive skins in the entire game, as well as the most expensive skin in the entire game. With this new skin, it's considered a legendary, which is usually held specifically for transforming a character into a new character, which obviously did not happen. It's also bloody, which implies that it's going to have a unique Mori, and it doesn't. But they priced it like it does, and they labeled it like it does. This is right after they said they were going to stop convoluting their rarities and contradicting their rarities rules. And then they immediately did. And again, you could view that as no big deal, but they're charging a premium for things you don't get. Another game I have an unhealthy relationship with is Valorant, like many people. Imagine if Valorant charged $105 for a premium bundle as they do, and without telling anyone, on release day, everyone comes to realize it's not a premium bundle, but it's the cost of a premium bundle. That would not fly in any other game or any other community. Why does behavior think it will fly here? sneaky marketing tactics aside, scammy shop practices aside, I also think there is a big problem with invocation perks. For people that don't know, we learned from this chapter that invocation perks do not synergize, meaning you do not get to go to basement, invoke, and have 2 perks active. By the way, I haven't seen a lot of people explaining this. Their reasoning for this is because boons, yes, you can do it with boons, but the difference is boons can be snuffed. If a killer knows it's Expo Shadow Step, Circle of Healing, blah blah blah, they're going to snuff the boon. All of those effects are now gone. With Invocation, yes, there's a very high risk to do it in the basement, but they believe there should be an added risk for Invocation perks since there's no way to, turn them off after they're activated. Unfortunately, I kind of do see Behavior's side here. I think Invocations ride a very fine line of being broken. Not right now, but potentially. Even the Invocation buff that kind of transformed it into a brand new part instead of the way it worked before where it could just be countered by Ruin. That is a fine line of being a very broken perk, but obviously the downsides are that you lose a health state, you're broken for the rest of the trial, and the killer knows it was you who did it. So unfortunately, I do see that if you want 2 of these powerful effects, but obviously it's not going to make someone else broken or make someone else lose a health state for the rest of the game, it kind of does make sense that they shouldn't synergize. In theory. But here's the thing. The new Invocation perk, Treacherous Crows, is fucking horrible. Why would I sacrifice my health state and so much time I could be on objectives for a team-wide killer aura perk? I understand there's potential value here, but let's be honest, all of the other aura perks for Survivor in this game could be debated that they're better. I'm looking at Kindred, I'm looking at Alert, at Fogwise, even Still Sight, even though some of those aren't really that strong, you don't have to sacrifice a health state. And if we're looking at team-wide perks, then Kindred is right there. Kindred will always be a great perk. I understand, it's 1 perk slot for the whole team. But do you really want to risk a health state and potentially invoking twice if you're bringing 2 invocation perks? For that? I also agree with Hens on this take. It is so weak. I see the other side that it could potentially be good if stronger perks came out, but as of right now, I believe the invocation mechanic has a horrible identity crisis. Because if you don't want the mechanic to be too strong, that makes perfect sense. Like if Treacherous Crows was on par with Weaving Spider's strength, then I would fully understand the need to invoke twice. But it's like they don't know whether or not they want this mechanic to be strong or not. To make a long fucking story short, I don't really know what their next step is with invocation perks. They could mega buff Treacherous Crows and keep the individual invocations, or they could keep releasing rather watered down perks that synergize really well and make it 1 invocation for all the effects. Or what I think could be fun is the effects only last until that survivor is dead. Would that incentivize tunneling? Yes, but well, I think it'd be pretty funny. So yeah, I was originally going to make a video on invocations and teamwork perks, and I wanted a battle of mid, but I don't really want to make a video like that when Behavior clearly is still putting the time and energy into adding new invocation perks. I'll wait for a few more to come out before I make a full video about it. Now, this brings us to the main point and the whole reason I made this video. The Houndmaster. Not a strong killer, and that's fine. I see all of these people complaining, and their biggest complaint is that the Houndmaster is weak. Hey, that's fine. Not every killer is going to be the strongest killer in the game. Obviously, I believe the Houndmaster will be buffed. I believe the Houndmaster's horrible, game-breaking bugs will be fixed. So, yeah, she went this way. The dog is on the inside of the fucking building. Guys, this power doesn't work. But as of right now, it feels damn near impossible to enjoy a killer that's so buggy you can't use the power 55% of the fucking time. Anyways, it doesn't matter that the killer's weak. It doesn't matter that the killer's buggy. These are things that can be fixed. And again, we have the same deadline for chapters with a much smaller staff because Behavior fired them. And I do believe that the negatives of this chapter are the effects and the consequences of mass layoffs. Now, what is my problem with this killer? If I love her aesthetic, I love her cosmetics, I love Snug, we all fuck with Snug, I love the idea, I even love the design of the power to an extent. The power is fundamentally flawed, meaning it will never be strong without being completely broken. In the way a lot of people say that DBD is fundamentally flawed because it's a 4v1 asim horror game, meaning it's never going to be perfectly balanced, which is true, this killer is fundamentally flawed in the way that it can never be balanced as well. Why do I say that? Recently, we've gotten a lot of killers that have a lot going on. It feels like we've hit another wave of very kit-heavy killers. Killers that have so many aspects to their kit. Like our last two killers were Vecna and Dracula. Two killers that have to navigate a menu to use their power. Again, there is nothing wrong with that. They're both great killers. And Dracula is so fucking strong right now, even with the changes. So why do I bring up these killers if they don't share any similarity with the Houndmaster's kit and they're not weak in any way? Because those killers' kits take bits and pieces from other killers, obviously. Hellfire could be Xeno's Tail, it could be Nemesis Whip. The dog is, as most people have said, a stronger Wesker power, which I think is pretty funny. And Vecna's are more generic, but he obviously has a movement ability, an intel ability, and a health state ability. I'm not calling these killers unoriginal in any way. I'm saying they're a great way of taking bits and pieces of kits, putting them into one kit, and not making it feel like it's overpowering or being overpowered by the other kits in the game. One of my biggest pet peeves of people in this game is they'll see a similarity in a new killer to an old killer, and they'll be like, wow, you've run out of ideas. No, there are 38 killers in this game, and there is going to be some kind of limit as to what you can do with the killer kit in this game. They are going to take bits and pieces of other kits and transform them into new and unique kits. There's nothing wrong with that. I get so annoyed when I see people complaining, oh, this is just like blah, blah, blah. It's really not. There's one aspect that's similar. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is that the Houndmaster has the same thing. She takes bits and pieces from other kits. The problem is that she is not nearly as strong as the killers she takes those pieces from. Killer instinct-based map movement, Legion. A grab effect that holds the survivor in place. You could say it's Deathslinger, but I personally would say it's Pinhead, as it's a skill shot that you hit and then the survivor is stuck, you walk up to them. When Deathslinger, you shoot them and then you reel them in, you know? Both very similar, but they do play very differently. The Houndmaster is somewhere in the middle, I would say, of those two abilities, but the problem is that out of these three killers, Legion, Slinger, and Pinhead, Houndmaster does not compete with any of them. That's why, to me, I don't believe this killer will ever be sitting in a good spot. In the same way Onryo kind of struggled with for a while, in the same way Skull Merchant still struggles with now, it almost feels like they don't belong with their current power. Now, Onryo was fixed, and yeah, she's kind of annoying to play right now, but she's not in a horrible state. Skull Merchant is, well, in a horrible state. And Houndmaster, I think, will be following very closely. Because if you wanted a killer where you could play as two different characters that was more viable, you would play Twins. If you wanted a killer with killer instinct-based map mobility, you would play Legion. And most importantly, if you wanted a killer that launches something of some kind, and if it hits the survivor, it incapacitates them, then you would play Pinhead. And that is my main point here, is I personally believe, and you are welcome to tell me I'm wrong in the comments, obviously, I personally believe there is no world where the Houndmaster will be able to compete with Pinhead in any way, shape, or form. Let's say you launch Snug, you hit a survivor. Snug drags them through a pallet, they throw the pallet, Snug is gone, the survivors are free. Let's say you hit someone with a Pinhead chain. They throw the pallet, sure, and they can even vault the pallet, which is great, but they're still affected by those chains until they break them. Map movement, Pinhead has a TP to go directly to a survivor. Map movement for Houndmaster, she does have more free mobility as she gets to choose where she goes, but even with its insane buff from the PTB, it still doesn't feel like it competes with other mobility in this game. And the solo queue stomper aspect of Pinhead with the passive slowdown that if you don't have comms on your team, nobody knows who's supposed to go for box. Could be two survivors getting off gens to go for it. That's two survivors not on gens. And if nobody at all goes for the box, then you just won the game. Not to mention, Pinhead's chain is not ground level. You don't have to gamble on whether or not it's going to slide off a wall or collide with a wall or hit the 1 pixel corner on a wall. Now again, Houndmaster does have some cool qualities. The fact that you can adjust in between your first and second lunge, very cool. I think it's a really fun and unique take on two separate killers in one, but I don't see a world where this killer is viable. And I know it might seem like I'm making this way deeper than it is. Ooh, the killer's weak. It's not that. It's that the killer is going to have the same identity crisis that the Skull Merchant had. Maybe not in the fun police pub stomping way that Skull Merchant was, but I just think this is going to be one of those killers that either stays very weak and gets completely forgotten about, or is getting changed every 5 seconds because they can't figure out what to do. And again, this is a discussion. You're welcome to tell me in the comments. I would love to know if you have ideas to make this killer feel more unique or more viable, then I would love to hear them in the comments. I am more than open to having my opinion changed about this because I love the chapter. I'm just really disappointed with how watered down this killer power is compared to other very similar killer powers in the game. If you've heard nothing else I said in this video, just hear this. In what universe would someone choose to play Houndmaster over Pinhead? It really comes down to if they prefer the aesthetics more, but you'd have to sacrifice the strength of the killer for the aesthetics you prefer. And to dumb it down as much as I can, Houndmaster like Pinhead, but very, very bad and very, very buggy. Obviously, it's more complex than that, as I've explained. Killers can have very similar kits and play very differently, as I've already said. But I guess the problem is the only redeeming quality I've seen online about this killer is the doggy. And again, I know some killers are gonna be weak, some killers are gonna be strong, but I just believe that this is the kind of kit that might need a full overhaul, as the counterplay is way too easy. The dog is pretty much RNG, it doesn't work half the time, and the map mobility just isn't really strong enough to incentivize playing this killer. The way I'm looking at this, big picture, okay, is if you are a killer player and you hop on killer and you say, what killer would I have fun playing right now? Would it ever be the Houndmaster? I'd love to be wrong about this, and maybe there's some giant point I'm missing here that y'all could fill me in on, but as of right now, besides the aesthetics and the, cute-ass dog that you can pet, by the way, awesome, I don't really see a world where a lot of people are going to enjoy playing this killer. Anyways, if you've been having fun with this killer, that's fantastic. I'm glad you are. I'm going to keep on playing her in my free time and hope I warm up to her, but as of right now, she's so buggy that I went right back to Pinhead, dude. As always, the discussion does not end here. We can continue the discussion in the comments. Any inflammatory or immature comments will go bye-bye immediately. You're wasting your time, but I hope you enjoyed the video regardless. And one quick note for the people that follow me for my DBD music videos, we're going to try something new. Obviously, the tier lists are going nowhere, but I don't want to overdo them. Like, I don't want to do a new tier list every time one single chapter drops, I like to wait for a couple chapters, and then we tier list all of them, and then I compare that to how we tier listed the chapters before them. But we are going to try a new style of video. I want to try combining the commentary video style, like this one, with the music video style, like my tier list, but I'm going to do it for one specific chapter. So if you guys have any chapters that you think stand out lore-wise, music-wise, aesthetic-wise, let me know in the comments. As of right now, my #1 pick is End Transmission because I believe that music is so true to its story, it's unbelievable. And I've been working on that video for 3 weeks now, and I'm struggling with it, but I think it'll be good once it's done. So if you have any other chapters that you'd like a video like that done for, you just let me know in the comments. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying till the end, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go play my goat, the better version of her.